60,000 years ago, in a cave in what is now northern Iraq, someone knelt beside a body and placed flowers on it. Wildflowers, most likely, gathered from somewhere nearby, chosen for reasons nobody alive today can fully reconstruct. That single act, preserved in pollen grains buried deep in the soil of Shanidar Cave, may be one of the oldest pieces of evidence we have of grief. Not survival, not shelter. Grief itself, deliberate and unmistakable. Why would a species obsessed with staying alive spend its limited energy mourning the dead instead of simply moving forward? Here's the answer that should genuinely surprise you. Grief isn't a flaw in your emotional system. It's a feature built by evolution, for reasons that had almost nothing to do with sentimentality and everything to do with cold, practical survival. Start with the obvious question first. What actually happens inside you when you lose someone you love? Psychiatrist John Bowlby spent decades studying this exact question, laying the foundation for what became known as attachment theory. Bowlby's core insight was simple but radical for his time. The bond between two people isn't just an emotional nicety, it's a biological system, as real and as measurable as hunger or thirst, wired into you from infancy to keep you close to the people who keep you alive. Think about what that means for loss. If attachment is a system built to maintain closeness, then losing someone isn't just sad. It's a malfunction alarm, blaring inside a system that no longer has its target. The alarm doesn't know how to switch itself off just because logic has already accepted what happened. Bowlby's colleague, psychiatrist Colin Murray Parkes, studied widows and widowers in the aftermath of loss and documented something remarkable. Grief doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in waves, cycling through numbness, yearning, despair, and eventually reorganization, often catching people off guard months or even years after they believed they'd already worked through it. Parkes noticed something else too, something that should sound familiar to anyone who is grieved. In the earliest days after a loss, many people report a strange, disorienting urge to search, to listen for footsteps that will never come, to half expect a call that will never arrive. This isn't irrational. It's the attachment system doing exactly the job it evolved to do, scanning relentlessly for a person it has been trained over years or decades to expect nearby. Have you ever noticed how grief can ambush you at the strangest moments? A song, a smell, an empty chair at a table, a handwriting style glimpsed on an old envelope? That's not a sign that you're grieving wrong. Parkes' research suggests it's simply how the system works. Your mind keeps searching unconsciously for the person who's gone, the way you might keep reaching for a phone that's no longer in your pocket, again and again, long after you know it isn't there. Now think about your ancient ancestors standing over a body for the first time, without any of the language or ritual we have today. What could grief possibly have done for them? No words for closure, no customs to lean on. Just a raw, unnamed weight, sitting in the chest of whoever survived to carry it. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Ness offers a compelling answer. He argues that grief evolved not to comfort the griever, but to recalibrate them. The pain of loss forces a slow, forced update to your mental model of the world, one that removes a person who used to be part of your plans, your safety, your future, and rebuilds your expectations without them in it. It's brutal. But it's also necessary. Without that painful recalibration, you'd keep investing time and energy in relationships that no longer exist. A far more dangerous mistake for a small, interdependent group of early humans than the temporary agony of mourning. Consider a small band of hunter-gatherers, maybe 30 people total, utterly dependent on each other for food, protection, and survival. If one member died and the group simply moved on without processing the loss, what would happen slowly to the social bonds holding everyone else together? This is where mourning rituals likely earned their evolutionary keep. A ritual isn't just an emotional outlet, it's a public, visible signal. It tells everyone watching, this death matters, this person mattered, and by extension, you matter too. And your death will be mourned exactly the same way. Groups that grieved together, visibly and collectively, likely held together more tightly than groups that didn't. Trust and cohesion needed proof, and burial, flowers, songs, and shared tears were some of the earliest proof humans ever gave each other. Think about what it would mean, practically, for a small group to skip this step entirely. A group that treated death as a purely logistical problem, a body to be moved and forgotten, would send an unmistakable signal to every remaining member. Your contribution here is temporary and disposable. Cooperation under those conditions becomes far harder to sustain. But a group that stopped, however briefly, to mark a loss as significant, was quietly reinforcing the opposite message, one that made every remaining bond feel a little more secure. Look at what archaeologists have uncovered elsewhere across the ancient world. Bodies buried with tools, ochre pigment, jewelry, even food, as if prepared for a journey nobody could promise existed. Whether or not early humans believed in an afterlife, the ritual itself did something undeniably real in the world of the living. It marked the loss as significant, and it marked the group as a community that takes loss seriously. That impulse never left you. It just changed its shape, from cave floors and ochre to funerals, memorials, and the impulse to gather with others the moment something is lost. Here's something else almost nobody considers about grief. Why does it hurt in the chest, quite literally the way it does? Researchers studying the overlap between physical pain and social pain have found that losing someone activates strikingly similar regions of the brain to those triggered by actual physical injury. Your nervous system, it turns out, never fully distinguished between a broken bond and a broken bone. Both register, at a fundamental level, as damage that demands your full attention until it's addressed. This overlap likely isn't a coincidence of brain wiring. For a social species like ours, isolation was once as dangerous as any wound. A human cut off from the group, without allies to share food, warn of danger, or help raise children, faced odds of survival barely better than one facing a physical injury with no way to treat it. Borrowing the brain's existing pain circuitry to register social loss was, in a sense, an efficient shortcut. Why build an entirely new alarm system when one already existed that reliably got your attention? This raises an uncomfortable but important question. If grief is this costly, this disruptive, this exhausting, why hasn't evolution simply removed it? Wouldn't a species that could lose loved ones without any of this pain have a clear survival advantage? The answer circles back to attachment itself. You cannot have deep, reliable bonds, the kind that let you cooperate, raise children, and build lasting alliances, without the cost of losing them eventually. Grief is the price attached to connection, and evolution seems to have decided again and again, across every human culture ever studied, that the price was worth paying. A species that couldn't grieve would likely be a species that couldn't truly attach either. And attachment, not independence, is what allowed early humans to survive in the first place. Think about how differently that reframes the pain you might be carrying right now, or the pain you've carried in the past. It isn't a malfunction. It isn't weakness. It's the exact cost of having loved someone enough that losing them mattered. Consider, too, how strange it is that every human culture ever documented, no matter how isolated, no matter how different its language or beliefs, developed some version of mourning ritual. Different words, different ceremonies, different timelines for how long grief should visibly last, but the same underlying instinct showing up again and again, as if written into the species itself rather than invented by any one of its cultures. Anthropologists studying cultures with no historical contact with one another have still found candles, wakes, wailing, silence, feasting, and fasting. Different costumes for the exact same underlying need to mark that someone existed and that their absence now means something. So the next time grief catches you off guard, in a wave you didn't expect, at a moment you thought you'd already moved past, remember what's actually happening. You're not broken, you're not failing to cope. You're running one of the oldest systems your species ever built, a system so essential that someone was already using it 60,000 years ago, kneeling in a cave, unable to simply walk away from what had been lost. Somewhere back through thousands of generations, someone stood exactly where you're standing now, and instead of walking away, they knelt down and left flowers. Whatever you are carrying today has an ancestry far older than your own life, running through every hand that ever refused to just walk away,